You already know more than you think. You just don't know how to read the signs yet. You've felt them before. A strange shift in someone's tone, a smile that stays on the lips, but never reaches the eyes. A pause that feels heavier than the words that follow. Most people sense these things. They just don't trust themselves enough to listen. Because every person leaves clues, not in what they say, but in what they reveal without meaning to. And once you learn how to notice those clues, people become impossible to read incorrectly. This is the skill no one teaches you. Not in school, not in relationships, not even in psychology books written for comfort. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. This video is not a quick list. It's not surface level advice. It's a complete breakdown divided into 3 connected parts. Each one builds on the last. If you skip ahead, you'll still hear words, but you'll miss the depth that makes this work. So stay with me, because by the end of all 3 parts, you won't just understand others more clearly, you'll understand yourself in ways you didn't expect. From a young age, we're trained to trust language. Words are our currency. We believe what people say because we're taught that honesty sounds honest. But Nietzsche warned us not to be fooled by language, because people don't speak from truth. They speak from survival, from ego, and from fear. Most of what people say is not a reflection of who they are. It's a reflection of what they learned kept them safe. The surface of someone's personality is not the person. It's their armor. The overly kind person may not be kind at all. They may be terrified of rejection. The person who seems unbreakably strong may be quietly collapsing inside, hoping no one notices. And the most deceptive part is this. Most people don't even know they're doing it. They're not consciously lying. They're acting out a role they learned long before they had a choice. Their smiles, their opinions, their confidence, their indifference, all shaped by what once protected them. That's why most people aren't hiding from you. They're hiding from themselves. Nietzsche once said, "Every profound spirit needs a mask." Not as an insult, as a warning. Don't confuse the mask with the person. Here's what no one tells you. People leak the truth constantly, not in their words, but in the cracks. The moment they look away, the laugh that lasts a second too long, the sudden change of subject when the conversation gets too close. These aren't accidents. They're leaks. And Nietzsche's first psychological truth begins here. Truth 1. Everyone wears a mask to survive, not because they're fake, but because they're scared. To survive society, people construct a version of themselves they hope will be accepted. The agreeable one, the confident one, the funny one, the unbothered one. But masks are never perfect. They slip. And the first sign of truth is tension. Watch what makes someone uncomfortable. Watch what they avoid. Watch what they rush past. That's where the real person begins. Truth 2. What someone hates in others often reveals what they're hiding in themselves. This is projection. When someone constantly mocks arrogance, they're often deeply insecure about their own worth. When someone obsessively points out dishonesty, they're usually hiding a truth they haven't faced. We tend to hate in others what we're afraid to admit in ourselves. So if you want to read someone, don't just observe what they admire. Look closely at what they criticize and ask why. Because criticism isn't neutral, it's emotional. And emotion always points inward. Truth 3. Silence reveals more than words. Nietzsche didn't believe truth came from talking. He saw language as something the herd uses to avoid confronting reality. So pay attention to silence. The pause before an answer. The dodged question. The short, rehearsed response to something deep. That silence is louder than speech. When someone avoids vulnerability, they're revealing exactly what they fear. Truth 4. Excessive virtue is often disguised vanity. Be cautious of the person who loudly proclaims their purity. The one who is always correcting others, always preaching, always morally superior. Nietzsche called this the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality becomes a mask for dominance, a way to feel above others without appearing aggressive. Real goodness doesn't need applause. It doesn't announce itself. It simply exists. Truth 5. People don't lie to you first. They lie to themselves. This changes everything. I'm fine. I don't care. I'm over it. These aren't lies meant to deceive you. They're lies people have rehearsed so long they've started to believe them. Nietzsche understood self-deception not as evil, but as defense, a way to keep functioning in a painful world. So when someone's story doesn't quite add up, don't assume manipulation. Realize they've been deceiving themselves far longer than they've known you. And that's what makes them readable, because the inconsistencies reveal the truth. Truth 6. Where someone feels superior, they're often hiding inferiority. This is pure Nietzsche. Superiority is often overcompensation. If someone constantly reminds you of their accomplishments, they likely fear they're not enough. If someone casually puts others down, they're probably terrified of being overlooked. Real confidence doesn't compete. It doesn't dominate. It doesn't need to prove itself. So when someone needs control, recognition, or power, look deeper. Behind the throne, you'll often find a scared child wearing a crown. Reading people is not about judging them. It's about understanding their core. When someone interrupts constantly, it isn't always arrogance. It might be fear of being forgotten. When someone posts obsessively about happiness, it might be a quiet cry for help. When someone avoids eye contact while saying, "I'm fine," listen to the body, not the sentence. Use these truths not to gain power, but to extend compassion, because the more clearly you see someone, the harder it becomes to hate them. And that was Nietzsche's real intention, not control, clarity. It's one thing to notice the mask. It's another thing entirely to watch it crack. If you've ever paid attention, you've seen it happen. A flicker of discomfort when someone's beliefs are challenged. A sudden change in tone when the conversation gets too close. A nervous laugh that doesn't match the words. These moments aren't accidents. They're signals. And once you learn how to read them, you realize something important. People aren't hard to read. They're just scared to be seen. In part 1, we explored how people build personas to protect themselves. But now in part 2, we go deeper. Because this is where the persona begins to fail. Nietzsche believed the self is not a fixed thing. It's a performance, a stitched-together role designed to survive the world. And the moment that role is threatened, the truth leaks out. Most human behavior is not driven by desire. It's driven by fear. Let's start there. Truth 7. Most actions are driven by unconscious fear. Ask yourself this. Why does someone over-explain? Why do they dominate a conversation or disappear completely? Why do they say yes when their entire body is saying no? Fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of humiliation, fear of failure. Nietzsche understood that humans rarely act from pure intention. We act to avoid loss. Loss of status, loss of love, loss of identity, loss of self-worth. So if you want to read someone, stop focusing on what they say they want. Instead, ask a deeper question. What are they afraid of losing? That's where the truth lives. The person who never disagrees may fear being abandoned. The person who controls everything may fear chaos. The person who never opens up may fear reliving an old wound. Fear is the engine. Behavior is just the exhaust. Truth 8. Criticism is a mirror. Pay close attention to people who constantly criticize others. The man who mocks emotional people may be terrified of his own feelings. The woman who attacks others for their appearance may be fighting a silent war with her reflection. Nietzsche believed judgment is almost never about the other person. It's about the self. So when you hear repeated criticism, don't fixate on the target. Trace it back to the source. Ask yourself, what part of themselves are they trying to disown? Projection isn't just a defense mechanism. It's a confession. And if you listen carefully, it tells you exactly where someone's pain lives. Truth 9. False confidence often hides guilt. You've met this person before, always composed, always certain, always in control. But if you watch closely, you'll see the cracks, the tension in the jaw, the defensiveness under pressure, the need to always be right. Nietzsche observed this in leaders, teachers, and moral authorities. People who perform certainty because they are terrified of being exposed. When someone is chronically confident, look for what they're trying to bury. Unresolved guilt, regret, a version of themselves they're desperate to outrun. Real peace doesn't perform, it doesn't announce itself. So when someone seems too confident, don't be intimidated. Be curious. What are they trying to convince themselves of? Truth 10. Exaggeration reveals insecurity. This truth is subtle, but once you see it, you can't unsee it. People betray themselves through exaggeration. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm always happy. I never get jealous. Exaggeration is volume, and volume exists to drown out doubt. Nietzsche believed extremism in any direction is imbalance, not strength. So when someone speaks in absolutes, don't focus on the statement. Read the insecurity underneath it. Ask yourself, what are they trying to silence? Because exaggeration isn't confidence. It's noise. Truth 11. The desire for control masks inner chaos. Control shows up everywhere, in relationships, in routines, in power struggles. But when someone needs control obsessively, it's not strength, it's fear. Nietzsche saw this clearly. When the inner world feels unstable, the outer world must be tightly managed. Micromanagement, rigidity, dominance. Not because the person is powerful, but because something inside them feels out of control. So instead of fearing controlling people, see them clearly. They're terrified that if they let go, everything will fall apart. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the inner self. Truth 12. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. Look around, especially online. The endless look at me energy. The constant updates. The curated identities. Nietzsche didn't see this as confidence. He saw it as desperation. When someone is always performing, it's because they don't believe they'll be loved without it. So they create noise, drama, a character. But the person who truly knows themselves doesn't need to be watched. They're already whole. So when someone's life looks like a performance, remember this. It's not power, it's need. You're probably starting to feel it now. The shift. You walk into a room and patterns speak louder than words. You notice who interrupts, who performs, who exaggerates, who controls. You're not reading minds, you're reading masks. And Nietzsche gave you the flashlight. This isn't just a skill, it's a responsibility. Because once you see people clearly, you can't unsee it. And what you'll realize is this. Most people are suffering quietly behind polished smiles. Reading people isn't about gaining leverage. It's about offering grace. When you see the fear behind the critic, the guilt behind the arrogance, the chaos behind the control, you don't become weaker. You become unshakable. And in the final part, we go even deeper. Because in part 3, we strip away the final layer. We explore childhood wounds, hidden envy, the patterns people repeat for decades without knowing why. The last 6 truths will change how you see people forever. And more importantly, they'll change how you see yourself. Truth 13. No one speaks from logic. They speak from pain. We like to believe people are rational, that they argue with facts, that they make decisions with reason. Nietzsche believed that was an illusion. Under every logical argument is an emotional scar. Someone says, I don't believe in love. It's just a fantasy. But listen carefully. They're not stating a fact. They're protecting themselves. People don't form beliefs first and feel later. They feel first. Then they build beliefs to justify the feeling. Worldviews are often emotional armor. So when you want to understand someone, don't ask only what they believe. Ask what hurt them. Ask what scared them. Ask what they never want to experience again. Suddenly, their opinions stop sounding aggressive. They start sounding defensive. Their arguments aren't attacks. They're shields. And when you see that, you stop reacting. You start understanding. Truth 14. How someone reacts to weakness reveals their true power. If you want to see someone's character, don't watch how they treat powerful people. Watch how they treat someone who can't fight back. Nietzsche believed real strength isn't proven through domination. It's revealed through restraint. If someone mocks vulnerability, they're afraid of their own. If someone punishes mistakes harshly, they were likely never allowed to make any. If someone always needs to win, they're still at war with themselves. But the person who can sit with weakness, without judgment, who can witness pain without running away, who can forgive when they could punish, that person has already won the inner war. So if you want to read someone, give them a moment where compassion is an option. What they choose in that moment will show you who they really are. Truth 15. When someone fears being forgotten, they chase attention. You've seen this person. They need to be seen. Every room and every story, every post. At first glance, it looks like confidence. Nietzsche saw something else. He believed the hunger for attention often comes from a deeper fear. The fear of being invisible, of being erased, of living without leaving a mark. So people create noise, not because they love attention, but because they can't tolerate silence. The child who was ignored becomes the adult who overcompensates. They don't ask for love directly. They demand it indirectly through performance, drama, intensity. So when someone feels like too much, don't be too quick to judge. Ask what they're afraid will happen if they're not noticed. Because sometimes attention isn't vanity, it's a cry. Truth 16. The person someone attacks is often the person they envy. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. People don't always attack because they hate. They attack because they admire, but don't believe they're allowed to be the same. Criticism is easier than admiration. So the person who tears down someone successful, who mocks someone confident, who gossips about someone free, is often confronting a version of themselves they abandoned long ago. To see someone living a life you denied yourself is painful. So instead of celebrating them, we try to destroy them. But envy isn't hatred. It's unspoken desire. It's the soul saying, I want that too, but I don't believe I'm allowed. If you see this in others, you become immune to petty hate. If you see this in yourself, you become free. Truth 17. People act out their childhood, not their beliefs. We say people don't change. Nietzsche would say something more precise. People repeat. They repeat the roles they were forced to play, the fears they were taught to carry, the dynamics they never escaped. The child who was never heard becomes the adult who never listens. The child punished for emotions becomes cold, logical, detached. The child who had to earn love becomes the adult who performs for affection. Even when it's destructive, they think they're acting from belief, but they're reenacting memory. So if you want to read someone, don't only look at who they are. Ask who they had to be, because behavior is biography, and behind every adult is a child still waiting to feel safe. Truth 18. Patterns are confessions. This is the final truth, and it changes everything. People don't always know how to explain what hurts, but they will show you again and again and again. The person who ghosts when things get close. The person who overworks to avoid stillness. The person who flirts with everyone but connects with no one. These aren't random habits. They're confessions. They're saying, this is how I protect myself. This is where I was hurt. This is what I'm afraid of repeating. Nietzsche believed that if you learn to listen, not to words, but to patterns, you can hear the truth before it's spoken. And when you do, something shifts. You stop personalizing, you stop judging, you start understanding. You become a mirror, not a weapon. And that's where real power comes from. You're not just reading people, you're remembering yourself. Take a moment. Every truth in this video wasn't just about others, it was about you, your patterns, your fears, your childhood scripts. Because the more clearly you see others, the more clearly you see yourself. This isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new way of seeing. Nietzsche didn't want us to observe life. He wanted us to awaken, to realize that what we judge in others is something we carry, and what we admire is something we long to become. So if something in this video felt personal, if you recognize someone or recognize yourself, comment below which truth hit you the hardest. Let's build something honest in a world full of mass. And if this spoke to you, subscribe. This is just the beginning of learning to see what's hidden and becoming who you really are.